What is
And it's
category 3 horror? What does that mean?
So category 3 is basically like not quite X-rated. It's exploitation movies in Hong Kong.
Oh,
Like a lot of Skinamax style cop stuff.
Sure.
A lot of softcore. Here's one from 96 called Ebola Syndrome. Subversive exploitation movies.
This is a Castle of Horror Hangout episode. So welcome to the Castle of Horror. With us are, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media. With me from Austin is Tony Savaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, the writer, creator of long-running underground comic Halloween Man, Mr. Drew Edwards. He's a Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Welcome, Drew. Hi. So, okay, tonight's movie, which Tony was just backing us into by discussing the curious phenomenon called Category 3 films, is The Seventh Curse, a 1986 Hong Kong adventure film based on apparently a novel series that I have not read. So, Tony, explain to us, and by the way, you can watch it on Prime, so that's where we saw it. Legit. Seventh Curse. Why this movie? How'd you come across it? What's the deal?
Again, this is another one of my random. I think I'd seen pieces of it because I watched anything that's like this action adventure cop drama category 3. So I guess we should back up. So category 3 movies are basically it's like the NC-17 version in Hong Kong. So you're not supposed to see this. A lot of it's, a lot of gruesome horror. There's a lot of kind of Skinamax cop drama, and some really kind of seedy, softcore stuff. And that can range from kind of silk stockings, Skinamax, you've seen it on late night cable, down to like, I don't know if I'm really comfortable with this. Your mileage may vary all over the place, but a lot of the category 3 stuff I like is movies like this. So this was another one of those, since I watch enough martial arts stuff that Prime decided to say, hey, this is on here now. Do you want to check it out? Of course. And what unfolded was pure action magic, full of, there's cop drama at the beginning. There's like ropey looking practical effects skeletons and monsters and, cults, adventurers, blood curses, European women throwing themselves, or Western women throwing themselves at this hot doctor guy, and, plucky reporters, all the stuff. And I love, crazy camera angles. I just love this, the true adventure category 3 stuff. I can never get enough of it. So, so it was random. And then I roped you guys into watching this with me, because that's what I would normally do if I had it on DVD. Like, you guys come over, We're going to watch Seventh Curse. Holy crap, did that just happen?
That's amazing. What's wild is, from my perspective, it seemed, I can get why you would have put money, if you were a producer, why you would put money into making this movie when they did in 1986, because that's the the sort of, the Raiders of the Lost Ark is still reverberating in the culture at that point. So this is like, oh yeah, well, I get it. It's a Raiders kind of movie, and it is a Raiders kind of movie. What's wild is that I
would argue it's more of a Temple of Doom kind of movie.
Well, for sure,
I'm with you. I mean,
that's totally true.
Or maybe like, what was the other one? Alex Quartermain?
Yes,
Alan Quartermain.
That's right.
But the sort of hyperviolence, and the sort of very, very high degree of, just cartoonish, like just stuff that you wouldn't believe, is very much more like Temple of Doom than Raiders.
That's what I love too. Like, I love a movie where I go, holy cow, did you see that? Wait, did that happen?
There's so many things.
Not in a horrible, like, where you feel it in your gut, like, oh, I don't go there, like, where you kind of, but just, oh my word, that also was a thing. I love it because there's a kung fu movie called Battle Wizards, and I would love to watch. I don't know if it's appropriate for this. I'd probably have to do some kung fu movie podcast. I don't know. Anyway, Battle Wizards is like that, and I love that. But yeah, this is everything there. But Drew, what was your first impression? Because you had never seen this before, right?
I will be to say that like this is definitely off my beaten path. I wouldn't have probably gone out of my way to watch it. That's not
For a lot of
like
people.
That's not me being dismissive of
No, of
it.
course.
I enjoyed it. There was, whether intentional or not, there was something of Will Eisner's The Spirit in this movie to
Oh
me.
man, that's good.
Because it just starts.
Right.
Like it doesn't really waste any time,
Yeah.
like into dropping you like you have this doctor who apparently sometimes works at the police because he's also James Bond.
Oh,
and he breaks up a hostage crisis with plucky girl reporter.
Yeah.
And that's like this movie is not interested in slowing down 1 inch. Like that's how you're in it. And so it reminded me a lot of like those Spirit stories where they would just drop you in the middle of something, and then like they have this sort of James Bond party where people are drinking booze, and like he's wearing a tuxedo and he drives home and there's a random woman there, and it's nuts. Like the rate this movie goes. It also, what was fascinating to me about this movie is I also just seeing other than just the Will Eisner-ness of it, the sort of Sam Raimi-ness of it. And then also we brought up like James Bond and Indiana Jones, so it's this all these Western stuff being reinterpreted, and I think I'm always interested in seeing that kind of thing in a movie from another country. And it may just also be because I just rewatched The Devil's Ride Out, but The Devil Rides Out. But I also was thinking about The Devil Rides Out a lot while watching this movie because of the cult and the scenes with the cult and everything.
Well, the fact that Dr. Wisely, his partner, is so like the Cardinal in
the Christopher Crook character,
Chow Yun Fat, no less.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chow Yun Fat, who's there to smoke a pipe and tell you about witchcraft.
And he's got a swell head of like 80s helmet hair.
Yeah.
Going on,
One other thing that I have to say that I took away from this, though, the one thing is they maybe should have rethought the voice that the sorcerer, the actor playing the sorcerer, because he sounded like fucking Mickey Mouse.
No,
well,
that's
I don't know.
The whole
Tony
thing
can maybe
is
explain
kind
culturally
of
what's going on with it.
Yeah, so you'll see that kind of weird, like not weird. You'll see that as a trope, like a man who's voiced by a woman, usually with like a higher pitch. So
that's literally what was going on.
Yeah, and
they did it on purpose.
If I want to say, is it heroic trio? I think the main villainess, or was it two?
Sometimes
I watch a lot of these.
Sometimes the voice will be pitch shifted, so it'll be a weird sort of like kind of
Or in some other
belly.
ones, if they need a more so also sometimes I've seen they'll have a woman, usually an older woman, who has a really huskier, like a man, like it's definitely voiced by a man. So they're going to overdub a lot of it anyway. So to get kind of this otherworldly quality. Now this one, they pitch it up by a lot. So I get where you're coming from, but it's to add this kind of otherworldliness, all gender kind of thing. Now, there's probably a scholar who can school me on this, like, who really knows exactly, like, oh, well, you'll see this in this tale and blah, 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 right? I'm sure that, and I don't want to speak for, I know everything about Hong Kong movies, but it is a trope that's kind of to give you that kind of strangeness and otherworldliness.
So that's fascinating, because I literally just thought it was an actor doing, like, I thought this was like a Bane from Dark Knight Rises situation where an actor was just doing a weird voice. And
well, I mean, it is, but it's also to kind of give you a weird, I mean, it's definitely off-putting in different ways in this.
And there's a little bit of transphobia in there. I mean, there's definitely,
which is not how I read. I think that's a completely fair statement.
Yeah,
that I did not pick up on it like that at all, because I didn't think of the character as transgender. I thought of the character as, again, it's just somebody doing like I
Yeah.
thought Mickey Mouse the whole time. Like that's like the whole
Right.
thing. I was like, why is this guy talking like Mickey Mouse?
Well, it's also
And
not always supposed to be exactly transgender, but more, I guess, more fluid or more
Yes.
just it's
Well, sure,
all
just like Baird Katze, right? You know, who
right.
throws you off with his gender bending.
Well, and I've also seen enough, category 3 movies to where there's more than a few that are firmly rooted in the 80s and would definitely, especially, having friends from all walks
Yeah.
of life. You look at it and go, wow, that is not.
Yeah.
We can't. I'm not going to condone this. This is of a
So explain
time,
something to
but
me.
not so much. I don't think this was so much that.
Okay, so
Or I
maybe I'm
didn't
not
read it
being
that way.
fair.
I mean,
But
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that like I'm the perfect be all end all judge of these things, but
No, me
it
neither.
it did not register to me. But I
Okay.
think what Jason said is fair. Like it could be
Mhm.
interpreted that way. Sure.
Of course.
So my question is, by the way, we're going to get to how awesome these heroes are and how they are sort of non-traditional heroes in a way, and that's pretty great. But I have a very practical question before we get into the plot. So
Sure.
this movie, please forgive my ignorance, but clearly everybody's dubbed, right?
Mhm.
The movie's filmed in Hong Kong. So was it filmed in one language and then dubbed into another? Is that what's going on?
So it depends. Sometimes. So again, oh man, Matt Kiernan. I wish he could school me, or Grady Hendrix would definitely school me on all of this. But a lot of times it will be in both Mandarin and Cantonese,
Mhm.
depending. And sometimes it'll be sometimes it'll just like everyone's speaking one and they redub it. But almost every like DVD you would get would have Mandarin and Cantonese on it.
Oh, hey, I just found that it's dubbed in Mandarin with English subtitles.
Right.
So and
a lot of times
Wikipedia
you'll
lists
see
it as a Cantonese film. So
right.
filmed in Cantonese, dubbed in Mandarin,
Right.
English subtitles, and if you get it on DVD, you can get either English,
That's
either language.
usually how it works, and sometimes it will be subbed in as well. So you'll see English subtitles and then subtitles in whichever language,
right?
Wow. Depending on which where it's being filmed, and a lot of prints will have those burned in. Like if you see it on actual film, it's harder to find a soft subbed kind of or a newer print. Because the way that it's filmed, like if you watch enough of these, you kind of get where you'll see that. And I always wonder, and I ask friends of mine, they're like, oh yeah, because the thing is, if it's in Hong Kong, you'll want to also, if you can, sell it to the mainland as well, and vice versa, because we forget that things haven't always been together.
Yeah.
So
no, for sure. Yeah.
But there's a lot more. And the reason that you can have more of these category 3 things is because in mainland China, there's so many restrictions on supernatural, on, cops always have to be good. Cops always have to win. There's a ton of very much communist China restrictions. So you get a lot of the Hong Kong movies that are able to have just weird, crazy crap like this. You won't usually see that. I'm not, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but you won't see as much of this outside of Hong Kong, especially in this era. But I'm so glad that we did.
I want to know what the novels are like. I mean, like
I would love
the
to
character
read
here. There's two novel series because these characters, there's Dr. Wisely, well, like I say, who's like the guy in who's like the Duke in Devil Rides Out, and there's Dr. Young, who is our sort of devil may care kung fu fighting James Bond style wealthy doctor, and they go on adventures together. Many novels. And I'm just dying. I mean, I wonder. I was looking on Amazon to see if they've been translated into English, and I haven't been able to find them yet.
No, a lot of that stuff is really tough because there's also a lot of the kung fu films you'll see. A lot of the martial arts films, wuxia stuff, came from novel series or comics as well. And there was some Crouching Tiger.
Crouching Tiger was based on a novel. Yeah. It was a comic, was it? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it could have also been I want to say it was the comic, but Heroic Couple, what was it? Storm Riders. And sadly, a lot of those comics started getting translated once Crouching Tiger was a hit in the States. But they just didn't have the lasting power. Manga became really popular. Chinese comics less popular, even though they are beautiful, but also they're really dense. Like the nature of manga tends towards it flows a little easier, but Chinese comics are really dense with characters and action, and
there felt like there was a lot of characters in this.
Yeah, no, you'll see it a lot, and a lot of times you'll feel that way, and it's because in the novels or the comics that's actually what's going on. And there may be they may film a part that takes place like in the middle of one of the series, so the people who've been reading are like, oh yeah, that's those 20 people. Right. 20, and the filmmakers don't care because it's so popular. It's like, who doesn't know the Avengers? I don't know. That. Well, kind of
you think about that for a second, or with Superman. If Superman's going to go to a hostage situation and there's a detective waiting for him, even in a movie where they don't bother to deal with this character, it's going to be Inspector Henderson. It's always, there are these minor Smallville and Metropolis characters that will just be used over and over again. And if you're into the tradition, then you go, oh, cool, there's Inspector Henderson. Otherwise you don't. But yeah, we start out with,
I love that you're referencing the George Reeves Superman, by the way.
Am I There you go. And I could be wrong about that. Perry White continues to be a character that gets used to this.
Well, Jason Inspector Henderson, may or may not see around. There's certainly cops that are reused in there's Dan Turpin, who's a cop that's reused in Superman comics. So like you're not wrong.
I was seeing Henderson at least as late as the 90s, and I haven't read a Superman comic since then, so I have no idea.
But you're not wrong. Like Inspector Henderson was originally in the George Reeves Superman TV show. God,
wow! How interesting. But it just melted into my consciousness.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
So speaking of these characters, in the very lengthy 20-minute long flashback, which takes up a good portion of the movie, and I'm fascinated by that in of itself.
Flashback because he has a curse that's reoccurring, and Dr. Wisely says,
blood curse.
What's the deal? And he says, I don't know, let me tell you about my flashback.
Beyond just the blood curse, although the fact that it's a blood curse is interesting contextually, because he's there trying to find a cure for AIDS.
Right. Yeah. Herbs, no less.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting because I don't even think an American movie of this time would have addressed the AIDS crisis quite so
no, I agree.
Verbally.
You're so right. Yeah.
Wow. You're saying America would also sweep a thing under the rug that was
a pandemic.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was
crazy, Drew.
Yeah, crazy.
I'm glad it didn't happen again. Glad it just stayed in the 80s. Anyway. It's bizarre and interesting, like the fact that they pointed out, and that's what he's going there for, this kind of altruistic mission, Doctors Without Borders, only now also finds a cult, is pretty amazing.
Right. Well, and their boss, the guy leading the expedition looking for herbs, is a Western doctor, and he goes, do not go and try and interfere or spy on the natives.
The worm cult.
Yeah, there's a worm cult over there. They beat drums and they're doing their rituals. Do not under any circumstances go and try and spy on them. And they're all like, yeah, no problem. And they like wait, like it's really literally he turns his back and off they go.
Yeah, well, I like, because also the way he's portrayed, you gotta think he probably has lost some people before, or been part of an expedition, and that's why he goes or knows enough to know, look, really seriously, I don't think he impresses upon them enough how pivotal that information is, but everyone finds out soon enough that that's bad.
Yes. Well, in the universe that he's operating in, basically scientists on expeditions are also essentially like Three Ninjas style middle schoolers who cannot be trusted to do anything.
Right.
I'm not sure. I'm surprised they don't like carry one another on their shoulders and wear raincoats to try to get into the rituals, because these guys are idiots. My God. Yes. And Dr. Yuen goes with them, and he's like always, he's the good character.
He still goes in even after that the sorcerer has a man-eating hybrid of Slimer and the Alien.
Holy holy crap, I love this character. I love it. He opens his cape, and from back, and I can only imagine that this thing actually embeds itself in his back. I can't. And out it comes, and you're right. It's like a big flying 3 foot tall, half baby, half sperm with a
Well,
mouth.
it's like the umbilical cord. That's again, this is why these movies, this is why when I saw it and I told you immediately, hey, you have to see this movie. Because
it is that I've never seen
once
anything
a practical
like that.
effects crazy baby is flying around biting people, is at the point where my next thing is to write you and Drew and Max and like maybe a couple other friends and go, all right, so if you haven't seen this has
it's
a flying like demon baby, and that's not even the worst demon because that actually they actually fight later.
Yes, they managed to train that one or tame it or control it because Dr. Wisely has magic basically, so they get to control that one later. Yes. What I love is there's a point where the Aquila, the priest with the effeminate voice, says something, and one of the guys up front goes, "No, that's not fair." And so he goes, "Oh yeah, well listen to my flying baby pet thing." And it like goes after him and tears off his head, and then just starts like tugging on his spinal cord, which it keeps popping back, so it goes like, roar! So he's kind of like a terrier trying to get a snake out of something. It's the weirdest.
Well, that's what I love about this category 3 horror, where we're gonna go as gross as possible and crazy as possible.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not so crazy. Maybe that's in the novel, and you're just like, whoa.
Well, hey man, I've never been attacked by a demon sperm monster, so that might be perfectly realistic to what those things do, man.
Yeah, you're right.
But
they could have an expert on set.
A baby with the umbilical cord twisted into some crazy tail who's also demon. It's like why am I drawing a blank tonight? This is terrible. The movie with It's Alive.
Oh yeah.
The baby head does look like it's alive. Yes,
it's like a crazy version of the baby in It's Alive, only amped to Hong Kong martial arts levels.
Yes.
So I just love, again, this is why these movies resonate with me, because it's also not dread. It's a constant fever dream of they just did that. Like that was on film. They created this thing. It flew around on set and chewed off people, like bit people's heads off, and all of this stuff.
It's also like
I love this Sam Raimi. We talked about this kind of Sam Raimi camera angles, which again, we'll see in like Bride with the White Hair, Zoo Warriors, that kind of stuff. Like all of those more, I guess, traditional in the way we think of wuxia movies. Hark will throw that, like he's definitely in that's the camera style, but you'll see a lot of that kind of crossover in these movies where they'll have like a sweeping shot, like even the beginning where they'll have where the cops are invading, and by the way, it starts out with cops. There's a guy who gets shot by a sniper immediately. Hey, there's a sniper, and then there's a guy with a head wound. The cops, everybody's just shooting at everybody. There's always machine guns. It's crazy. And that's a big deal, by the way. Like, the fact that all the enemies have guns, like, everybody has guns. Mm-hmm. We forget, because of kind of the culture of America, like, guns are a big deal. Outside of the U.S. So when they are really, really bad people if they have guns. Like they've had to get them completely illegally.
I cracked up when Dr. Young gets into his hotel and fucking reporter Sally just shoots at him at random with that laser scope pistol.
Oh yeah, well they procured so many guns, but the thing is that's out of context. We've seen enough action movies where just like every Rambo, every Michael Dudikoff, everybody just has an amazing amount of weapons, but it's a little different when culturally it's more of a rarity.
That is interesting. Well, I was just thinking, it's strange how much the cartoonishness of the violence here, by the way, that like Sally, the reporter, she fires a gun in his direction just to get his attention and goof around. She whacks a policewoman on the back of the head with a brick in order to
to dress up as
steal
a
her
nurse,
disguise.
and then almost botches it because she doesn't know.
Yes,
the right.
Oh, God,
and I love they have him deliver a bomb because they all know he's brave. Like, we need a doctor who's really brave, and they show this by having a machine gun shot. They shoot machine guns at his feet, and he doesn't flinch. So he's, we've firmly established this is a man who takes no guff. So hey, can you deliver this bomb? By bomb, it's really more of a flashbang because they need to get in, and I don't. By the end of it, though, I don't even know how many hostages actually survive. Because the idea is that they say, "Hey, there's a hostage with who's having a heart attack. We need you to save him."
Oh yeah, does that happen? I can't even remember.
I mean, I don't know if he ends up. He starts to try to save him, and then things go south. So
yeah,
with the amount of gunplay involved, I don't think many of those hostages made it out.
Right. There's some good kung fu right there at the beginning, and it establishes that Dr. Young is basically an all-around Indiana Jones, except for with a kung fu angle. And I love that he's got these gigantic glasses, and he wears his tuxedo a lot in the beginning. He's clearly quite wealthy. He has the most extraordinary.
His house has a fake river flowing through it.
A river runs
a
through
waterfall.
It. Yes, it does.
His house has a water feature
and a random white woman for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, but also Western.
Yes.
So he is a multicultural player.
Yeah.
All the women love him.
Well, Westernism is interesting. So Hong Kong is not mainland China, at least not in 1986. Right. So the Western style of like Chow Yun-fat's place and the Cosby clothing they're all wearing and everything. This could very well be an English movie. It just so happens that everybody's Asian because it's the
80s as well. So there's a certain the economy's on the rise, and if you watch a lot of watch a lot of this, it's a very you can see where class kind of plays. You can see the kind of striations a little bit, but there's a growing upper middle class that also really embrace, like you've seen them really embrace the 80s, lots of shoulder pads, lots of like jackets, like larger jackets and all this stuff. And, that continued for quite like decently into the 90s. A lot of the fashion, but, a lot of that is to show like, these, everyone around is like pretty well off. They're really riding the economy nicely.
It reminds me of the homes. Go ahead, Drew. Yep.
The sort of upper classness too does play a lot into, I brought up like the Dennis Wheatley Devil's Ride Out, that sort of cult thriller, but also, the aristocratic adventurer is certainly a pulp trope that we see a lot. So by making them upper class, like where they're sitting there with they're even the way the movie ends where they're just sitting there drinking bourbon out of sifters with at this well-appointed study.
Right.
There's this idea that like you can't go off and have like these adventures if you're just Joe Schmo. And I wonder the West of that.
Yeah, none of the cops get to have those adventures.
No.
Yeah.
the Western idea that you brought up the fact that this is different than the sort of film that would be made in mainland communist China. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is that kind of almost like a hey, screw you, communist
capitalism
China
is
kind
good.
of attitude?
I have no idea.
Capitalism
maybe
is good. Yeah.
I'm
mean,
gonna take a guess.
Complicated, but there is definitely a little bit of that.
It's complicated in real life too, Tony.
Yeah. But there's some of that in there because there's just movies, the time period, what's being made, how the politics are, what the economy is like, all of that is also this kind of time capsule because eventually it becomes harder and harder to make movies in Hong Kong. Like there's a whole shift. there's much written about it, but where's a lot of this 80s stuff, there were just a lot of cool movies being made at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just of this time. There's kind of a rise and fall. Anything's an ebb and flow, but culturally, this is just, and I'll have to say that, the Toho logo, the Shaw Brothers logo, and the Golden Harvest, like, dun dun, are just, as soon as I see those have like a special place in my heart. Like, it's up there with the 20th Century Fox fanfare that, since Star Wars, that became the mark of, oh, it's going down. Like, everyone be quiet, because, and anytime I see the Shaw Brothers kind of shimmery thing, or the Golden Harvest dun 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 starts, I'm in it to win it at that point. Like, I'm all in, and it evokes, it hits me at the base of my brain and the like core of my heart. I don't know.
I feel really happy for you because of that. That's wonderful. That's really great. They head to Thailand, which is as presented in this film. It's like going back in time. It's like saying that you went on safari, and they're going
There's
to this tiny village.
Some cultural things with that on, hey, look how things are all super cool in
Hong Kong. Yeah.
But you go to Thailand.
And there's still tribes. There's that worm tribe over there with their magic and their weird baby beasts and stuff. And
their child crushing machine.
Jesus. Yeah, so Aquila.
I don't know how I forgot, but that was one of the things I meant to tell you guys. I think I wrote and said, hey, so I think this is better as a Hangout episode, because I don't think this is a Julia movie.
This is there's some grody stuff. The child crushing is so abstract. I don't know how, but that's the wrong word for it. But my point is, it's so silly. It's like something out of a Carol Burnett skit where, oh, now we're throwing like little 6-year-olds into this box and then there's blood flowing out of the bottom. That's grody, but it's so cartoonish that I was not triggered by that.
But not everybody is. Well, I think people who aren't inured to this insanity would go, oh my dear Lord.
I mean, it is important to the plot, as it were, because it is that's where they get the blood, their rituals.
Yeah, he needs blood to feed his
skeleton.
Yeah. So the creature
demon.
Yeah. So the Aquila, the bad dude, he's the one who's got the baby demon, but he's also got this so-called old ancestor demon that he has been that he serves. And when it gets around, it has two forms. It has a sort of very funny skeleton form, and then it has a transformation twice and turns into a sort of
like a bat demon.
Yeah, like something out of the.
It looks like man, I wonder now. I don't know, but there's in Castlevania Dracula and they have it at the beginning of Symphony of the Night, where you play the end boss from the previous game.
Yeah.
And he turns, Dracula is Dracula, cool suited Dracula, and then he turns into a giant bat demon. But now that I think about it, I wonder if they saw this as part of it. I think it's different enough, but I'd have to look up when the original Castlevania that has that boss in it came out, because it just, now that I think about it, it's kind of similar.
He also reminds me a lot of Gaius from from Gamera,
But it's crazy. And all that, I love the Gonzo's practical effects.
Oh yeah.
In
the transformation where the fact that they made this thing, this skeleton head that then, starts to expand from inside and it stretches and turns into another dude. That's awesome.
It reminds me a lot of the bat monster from the end of Fright Night 2 as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, I can see that. I know that we're all over the place, and I think that's
this movie is all over the place. That's what I love about it.
They continue. So the relationships I should mention, the girls that Young is interested in, besides the Western girlfriend that he has at home that he kind of forgets about. He kind of he's kind of got this love interest thing going with the reporter, even though there's cartoonish. The fact that he ties her up and leaves her in his hotel is totally, I mean, just unacceptable. And yet, as presented in this movie, again, just like the child crushing, it's so bizarre and played for laughs. It's like a skit or a
You'll
sketch.
also see that trope in a lot of movies, maybe not tying somebody up, but that there's a relationship trope where there's the hard-hitting reporter and they have an on-again. I don't even think they're on again. They just have this rivalry that's playful. Every once in a while, it will culminate in them hooking up.
Right.
But it's this general back and forth. I'm too tough. And he goes, oh, you're too much of a tomboy. I'm too much of a player to really, for us to get together. And that to the point where she like really messes up his game at the party.
Yeah.
He's talking this like super 80s, her 80s clothes are great. Hat, suit,
her groovy hat, yeah.
All of it. And she ruins that. So he's angry. And of course, he drives a Porsche and they have a whole race thing. But there's a lot of that. You'll see a lot of that kind of shorthand for those characters.
And there's the other girl
movies,
who from the village who helps him escape. The first time he receives the blood curse when he's visiting there the first time on his AIDS expedition, he gets affected with the blood curse and she nurses him back to health, if I understand correctly, by cutting open her breast and feeding him a hunk of her own flesh. Maybe
more or less, yeah.
Well,
but also she's, I mean, again, since this is category 3 film, you're going to do the same thing that you would do like eventually like in a Friday the 13th or any knockoffs where or even, older black and white monster movies where even when it was salacious to show a short skirt or whatever, you're going to give 18 plus year olds or people who want to sneak into a category 3 movie what they came for, which is usually some kind of nudity, maybe a lot of nudity, depending on like Naked Killer has like an extended lesbian love scene as well as other love scenes,
right?
That's part and parcel with all of this, right? We're gonna give the people what they want, right?
Absolutely.
And so when she shows up, she's in she's swimming in a shirt, but the shirt's just transparent. I mean, it's just there because hey, that's slightly more titillating. And then you have her undressed so that she can cut open her breast and nurse him back to life, help him with the blood curse, but. She's basically just postponing things because the whole crux of why he has to go back is, hey, it's been a year. You're probably going to die if you don't get this fixed.
Yes. And Dragon, who is the local hero of the village, he's the one who brings Dr. Young back. And in the tradition of Marvel Comics, when he breaks into Dr. Young's apartment to say, hey, it's been about a year, you should come back and also help us defeat the evil Aquila, they have to fight first.
Right, of course. Put on the shades. No.
Because every doctor is a master of martial arts.
I mean, in this series,
every doctor I know, that's
hey, next time I have to pick out a dentist,
yes,
all I'm saying is like, how's your jujitsu?
I mean, in the tradition of Doc Savage.
Yeah, I mean, truly, this guy is. I love characters like this. I love how perfect he is at everything. I mean, it's wonderful. It's just really great. The clothes, the glasses, the doctor skills, the Porsche, everything is. He is a complete wish. It's a character aimed at 12-year-olds. It is a perfect
but in a series made for college,
right?
It's really for college
12-year-olds in all of us. Yeah,
right. Yes,
yeah.
You don't think there's like college kids who probably be like getting high, eating pizza, and watching this movie, going, "Man, I wish I was an awesome martial arts babe screwing, hostage rescuing archaeologist / medical doctor who can do super kung fu even though he has a blood curse."
Yes.
So I wonder if there was ever in the history of ever, there probably was, but someone who goes, "Oh, I hate these movies." Some parent, I hate these movies, but it has made him want to be a doctor.
Yeah.
So So we let him watch all these. So he reads these trashy novels and he thinks it of adventure, but at least he's going to med school. So we'll let it slide.
Absolutely. Listen, I mean, God, I wanted to be a lawyer because I watched TV shows with lawyers in it. Honestly, people make these decisions for the weirdest reasons. Yeah. So what else should we mention? Because
well, I also, let's not forget, in the flashback we also get a tribe, a huge tribe chasing vehicles and jumping on them.
Oh yeah, that's a great
insane number of just crazy fighting with a car chase, no less. And then followed by, again, a crazy, fantastic practical effects flying around skeleton that rips off heads and chews on spines, and a man who's eaten from the inside out by worms.
Oh man!
And digs out his own entrails.
Yeah,
this is, again, I guess that describes.
That's the so-called
your mileage
worm
may
curse.
vary on if this is your cup of tea, right?
And they have the hate curse that they give the plucky reporter the hate curse, and so then they have to do some magic stuff
and she has to soak in blood. That then
she has to soak in blood.
Of all these black animals, it's a black dog, a black cow, a black lizard, a black eagle. Which I'm like, man, they really got on it, because that's a
gotta go kill some animals. Yeah.
Well, also. That's the other kind of not so great part of some of these movies, is some of it's definitely practical effects, and other parts there weren't always the claims that no animals were harmed.
Right. Although not in this movie, to be fair.
Not in this one, but in other movies,
right.
I've seen, chicken and snake violence especially.
Oh God, yes. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That can be really off-putting, and I don't blame anybody who's like, well, I can't believe that happened. Just that was how it was done, but absolutely. Yeah, not in this one, but yeah, they have to get all these animals. Also, it's yet again, because it's Category 3 movie, it's, oh look, well, we can't not have our main heroine in a bathtub, at least, even if she's not going to be nude as much as Baju, the woman from the tribe.
I don't even think she's remotely nude. I think she's like in her full, like, I can't even remember.
Well, she's in a bath, like, again, she's submerged, but
yeah.
But because it is what it is, we have to have some excuse for her to bathe, and at least we know she's nude. And that's like I said, again, your mileage may vary. This is a very doodly action movie full of gore, and it's firmly aimed at doodly action. Right?
There's a hell of a lot of gore. The funny thing is, though, I can take the gore in something like this from the mid 80s much more than when the film gets a lot better, like around 2000 in movies like this, and the special effects get a lot better. I reach sort of my breaking point.
Well, also, I agree, and there's also an intent. Like, this is kind of why I love this era and this kind of movie, because it's not even it's perhaps in some ways more gory as far as entrails and spinal columns and stuff,
right?
But it doesn't even reach the seriousness of gore in, let's say, a Friday the 13th movie,
right?
Which feels more traumatic.
No, this is basically a wuxia film. This is a magic adventure film,
right? But it's gory, and it's not for everyone. But it's so cartoonishly violent.
Yeah,
this is why
I think that's why the Sam Raimi comparison is apt, because it's maybe not Evil Dead 1, but certainly Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness have a level of blood and guts that feels sort of Looney Tunes. Like Friday the 13th feels a little bit more malicious, but they're also not. The other thing about like the Evil Dead series, once you get past the first one, is that there's an element of like action movie to them, whereas like Friday the 13th took a lot more sequels to get to that. They're still straight horror.
Those are horror. They're supposed to be scary,
and it's supposed to be that way, right? And I like those movies for what they are in the pantheon of horror.
Yes,
but one thing, the reason I can watch stuff like this more often is just it's so crazy that it feels like a whirlwind. Again, it appeals to your inner. Like, you still have that, sometimes like the wonder of if you were even younger and you see Jason and the Argonauts or something, like, whoa, did I actually see that? Except now it's crazy viscera and kicking people and, you know, cop violence. I don't know. It's the extension of that. Again, it's why I love Story of Ricky O, which is just insanely violent. But it's so insanely violent. It doesn't. If you have a certain sensibility, it doesn't even reach the. It can't even. It's hard to take it seriously. And now, again, I could see why if somebody was really offended by it, like I'm not going to tell them that they shouldn't be because it is gross and terrible. But like,
I think you were right to say that this probably wouldn't do much for Julia. That like just doesn't like gore, no matter what any
more than she would dig Dead Alive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she's not going to watch that movie, right?
And Dead Alive's also apt because it has a lot of similar.
It's hilarious. Yeah, it's a funny movie, but it's gross. Yes.
Yeah.
For real.
No, again,
and I love that. I'm someone that really does like that kind of thing. You know, but from a certain to me. To me, it's never really less about gore because when I'm watching gore in a movie, I know it's a special effect. Right. To me, it's usually like torment is something I think I don't really like.
Intent is everything.
Yeah, I there's some I was part of a discussion on social media about Antebellum, which just came out, and I learned a little bit more about the movie, and I was like, nope. Not for me, thank you, because it seemed like there was just going to be a lot of torment in that movie.
Yeah, I don't dig on that.
And that's just not my thing. I do like gore, but I like it as I guess I like the special effects and I like the craziness of it. And I like monsters, which is what this movie does have lot of that.
Yeah.
Maybe not on par with the stuff was happening in the States at this time, but pretty fun. The skeleton transformation, especially at the end where you see like his hand extend and like two fingers fall off and all that stuff is like that's the kind of thing that's like really that just speaks to me on a certain level. Like I like seeing that, and and even the skeleton, which doesn't look quite as good as the other creatures. Like it has a certain like you were in a really well appointed haunted house kind of vibe to it. It's still fun to watch.
Compare that to the experience of watching, say, Chainsaw, which is a full 13 years before this, right? And yet Chainsaw is harrowing. I mean,
a great movie.
It's a great movie. But it's not fun. It's not funny. It's never.
But it's also not nearly as violent as this. That's or gory, I should say.
That's for sure. Right. Oh, not nearly. Absolutely not nearly.
And I think the thing, we've never done an episode on it, but I think what you've just explained right there is why I tend to watch Texas Chainsaw 2 more, because it's more cartoonish and more funny and more the gore in it is more like this, where it's whereas Texas Chainsaw, like every once in a while I break that one out and I always admire it, but it is admirable. It's an unpleasant movie to watch though.
Oh yes. Jeez. Yeah. So
you have to take a shower after watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It is extremely well done, but I'm just saying it's so funny how they're just so totally different kinds of horror film, almost to the point where it just shows you how broad this genre is, because it incorporates that, which is very, very, very scary. When she is trapped at that dinner party, and there's a close up on her eye as she's just like trapped and screaming. That is totally different universe from this, which is essentially an adventure film, a la Temple of Doom, with a lot of gross stuff, and it's and demons and everything. We should, I think, wrap up, but so if there are any final thoughts or things we might have missed.
Well, I think we didn't even talk about their adventures where they have to do things like very Temple of Doom, steal the eyes from a giant Buddha.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And fight off
So is that
who
what
appear
the
out of
novels are
nowhere.
like? Is that what the novels are like, or
I
is
have
that
no idea.
Indiana Jones stuff? That's what
I
I'm
have
trying
no
to figure out.
idea. I assume. I mean, the problem is that a lot of, if there were translations, they weren't probably as popular. I
If you
can
can't
speak
find it on
for the.
Amazon, you're in trouble. I mean,
Yeah,
that's right.
I can speak for the comics that were translated because I tried to get a bunch of those. And unfortunately none of the stories, because they're also really long.
Yeah.
So oh man, but they're so beautiful. Like Storm Rider's comic is just and the colors and everything on, I think it was Comics 1, if I remember correctly. I'll look it up. But was doing all of those, and I wish they had A Man Called Hero, all that stuff was just cool. Heroic Couple. Anyway, I think a lot of novels just didn't make it because they're kind of specific, and it's also, there's just not really a market.
Yeah.
In the same way that, we still get a lot of manga, but a lot of the comics I was mentioning had never really caught on and enough to keep a company afloat.
Well, it's funny because like the stuff in this is not. This is what I would call a ripping yarn. Like it's very much in the tradition of British adventure stories and American pulps. So it's funny, like of all book series that you would not translate, because there's an audience for this kind of thing in the States. I mean, time has taught us that, if nothing else. I mean, I would be interested in reading the books if they ever were able to come over here. They seems like the sort of thing I would enjoy.
I mean, to be honest with you, it's hard to find a lot of stuff, because even finding a translation of Water Margin, which is the epic, if you're going to read an epic from China, and there's multiple translations, and everybody kind of grouses on which one's the best and stuff like that. I ended up buying one for the Kindle. So popular fiction novels, it was just harder to bring them over.
Well, I mean, but now you would think in the universe of Kindle and everything that there'd be a lot of ways for somebody to get this into the American market. Anyway, we'll try and answer that question. But you're totally right. Okay, so we should get final thoughts, and then I'm actually interested in if you guys have any endorsements for this week. So, Tony, you mentioned the Indiana Jones-ishness of it all. Any other thoughts that you want to share?
No. Oh, but I was also wrong. Let me clarify. Legendary Couple was one of the comics that I was talking about.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and Hero, Crouching Tiger, and Storm Riders, etc. If you can still find those around, they are really fun. At least, if nothing else, you should get those for the art. Comics 1 was the publisher back in the day. Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber. I wish at least one of those would have completed. But it was not to be. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's just a fantastic finale. I mean, it ends with just kind of a party, a very affluent party, but all of the stuff leading up, like, there's also, you get a battle between Demon Baby and Demon Ancestor, Bat Ancestor. Oh man, it's so good. And all the martial arts stuff is just really cool. The battle on the Buddha where they're trying to get the eyes is also just fantastic. I love that you have a lot of really good fight choreographers who are willing to take fights to multiple levels physically. So
yes,
there's a vertical and a horizontal aspect to all of this crazy fighting, and that's amazing. Even in going further into the temple where they go back to,
they're set upon by a bunch of priests in orange, and that's a really neat like fight that's in 3 dimensions. It's very
so that, and then it continues in the in the next each fight location. There's a bunch of really great stuff in that, and again, for me, it's just this kind of adventure action of this era is, I could watch an infinite amount, because it's all about, oh man, did you see that? Oh no, did you see that?
Yeah.
And while that may not be everyone's bag, it's definitely why I immediately had to write you, message you guys and go, I think I found a Hangout episode that's just fun and insane.
Absolutely. No, thank you. This is really, really wild. I would like to see more stuff like this. Drew, what about you? Final thoughts on this?
Well, I one thing we did not talk about, and I occurred to me, so I'm going to bring this up as a final thought. I'm blanking on the name, but the woman that saved when he used first curse, she's
Baju.
she is going through this she has been disfigured by a curse of her own, and I find it interesting that they kind of end on a bit of a downbeat note as far as her is concerned. Is that she does not get cured at the end of the movie, and I think that it was a gutsy move on
well, also, it kind of solidifies that Dragon, kind of his chivalry, where they're still in love regardless. I think that's pretty cool.
Even though she's still scarred. That was actually, I thought, extremely forward thinking. That was great. I did. I really admired that. You know, I also like the design of the character who has half their face covered by a scarf. That was cool. You know, she seemed like a manga character actually with that.
Well, I love that. There's a lot of the also period piece kind of stuff where they'll do a lot with fabric and how it flows and people turning certain ways when they're doing their either martial arts or like flying through the air and all of that. There's a lot of like cool visual poetry. And Western filmmakers have tried to do some of that, but for some reason it just hasn't translated in the same way. And I'm fascinated by why that hasn't worked, because it just doesn't have that same flavor. So, but a lot that's also a kind of cool visual trope that you'll see throughout, and even not even category 3, just through regular PG and rated R movies. That I always enjoy seeing how they use fabric to accentuate. And part of it's probably me geeking out as an animator as well. How all of that secondary motion flows across the screen and draws your eye. That's always just magic to me.
That's a really good point. I wonder if, lately in the last couple of years, people have complained that blockbuster films have been dominated by all these superhero things. But it strikes me that there is a vocabulary of the physicality of the heroes that is similar, although it's a different language. But, starting back with The Matrix, which kind of brought a sort of comic book.
That's the closest, actually, I think.
The way that think of Trinity landing, the way Trinity lands.
Well, I think the Wachowskis definitely, now that I think about it. But what's funny is the stuff that apes that. I think it goes back again what we talked about. There's plenty of stuff that rips off the Matrix.
Yeah.
But how much cooler would it have been if they went back? If those filmmakers would have went back to the well, to where the Wachowskis were going.
Yes.
Because the more you talk about it, especially the first film, they owe a decent amount to a lot of this kind of stuff. And I hadn't really thought about that, but I think you nailed it. That's the closest I've seen. But a lot of stuff just decided I like the Matrix, let me do that. And some of it's really cool. It's not a knock, but there's always something there that I think you can dig just a little bit deeper and bring something to it. If you try.
Well, and that's why I'm really curious, and it's not a complaint about this movie at all, but I really want to know the Temple of Doom stuff, because Drew said it exactly right. There's all kinds of Temple of Doom stuff. And is that just they're lucky that there were some novels in the Dr. Yuen series that allowed you to kind of ape Temple of Doom, or are they heavily informed by Temple? I wish I knew, and because I remember also at this time in the United States, Indiana Jones is a big deal. And so we got TV shows like a year and a half or so later, because it takes time to make a ripoff, right? We got things like Bring Him Back Alive and, God, what was the one with Stephen Collins? Tales of the Gold Monkey.
Tales of the Gold Monkey.
Even Romancing the Stone has Indiana Jones.
So we were using that vocabulary all over our own art, and I'm just curious if that was happening here. So, Well, I was pleasantly surprised. This was really cool. I really did enjoy watching this, and I just want to find these books. I want to read some of these books, or somebody to bring it as a comic book that like IDW can do or something. And by the way, there's a lot of Dr. Wisely movies. FYI, there's a bunch of those. So
with Chow Yun Fat?
No, different series, but there's like one called The W Files. I'm looking at a list. The Legend of Wisely from 87, The Cat from 1992, Wesley's Mysterious File from 2002, The New Adventures of Wisely from 1998, and The W Files.
From what I know, I don't know how many of those made it to the West. Like,
yeah, I have no idea. Yeah,
because only a couple of them sound familiar, and not that I've seen everything.
Right.
But when you're searching out stuff and you see a stack of DVDs, especially stuff that is subtitled, I don't know how many of those made it here.
Yeah,
but I would watch them.
The W Files is a TV series from 2003. So Dr. Wisely is the character, and it's a Hong Kong TV series with 30 episodes set in China in the 30s. The 1930s. This one is.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, that's really Devil's Ride Out. The Devil Rides Out right there.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm totally that sounds fabulous. Do you guys, before we go, do you have any recommendations? Anything that we should watch, listen to, kill the rest of the week with?
I mean, if this ends up being something that you dig, and again, I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop where both you and Drew go, "What? Why, Tony? Why?" But if you,
I mean, you made it through Planet of the Dinosaurs, so I figure
I mean, that's fun too, though. Like, that's fun. I mean, this has a baby crusher and an insane skeleton and a woman cutting things out of her breast and feeding it to, like, there's so much. I don't know. I'm always, like I said, I like this weird, crazy crap, but I could see if somebody went, Tony steered me wrong. You've lost all credibility. I always wait for that because, you're just gonna, like, not everybody. I mean, we live in a complicated, crazy world. You're not going to be along for the ride for everything. But if this is a thing that you dig, I would say there's things like Robotrix, Ricky O.
Definitely Ricky O. Yeah.
If you want more assassins and very racy and Skinamax, again, there's a very select set of people who enjoy the Naked Killer 1 is interesting and does a lot with cinematography, but it's also, very much I don't know if it goes as far as NC-17, but there's a lot. Naked Killer is of a kind as well. I like it, but it's very niche. Like, you could, if you want to go more PG-13 rated R, Heroic Trio 1 is especially great. Let's see. There's just a bunch of stuff like that. Like, and again, I could probably dig up a bigger list. But once you've watched this movie, if you watch it on Prime, the cool thing is it's going to start recommending you other movies that are similar. And then you can, and that's what led me to Seventh Curse, was I was watching enough Kung Fu stuff and Insaniac, things like Battle Wizard, etc., that it starts to push you towards that. So that's pretty cool. But that would be my, hey, if you're wanting recommendations. So if anybody does, if you're along for the ride for this and you want more like it, I'm sure, especially if you go, I like this part, but not so much this or that. I'm sure I can find you. If Prime isn't doing it for you, I can give recommendations on the Facebook page as far as.
I'm trying to imagine, Tony, what you just said sounds really cool because I can see a Venn diagram or like an arrow diagram kind of where it's go more heroic, more sexy, whatever, right, like pointing in different directions and go, Heroic Trio, or Ricky O, which is less magic, whatever.
Or like if you wanted more magic, Storm Riders gives you the insanity with almost no gore. And although some of the CG doesn't age as well. Same with Man Called Hero. And those aren't category 3. There's a certain grayness, or like a Seeding of a Ghost is another, like a horror category 3 if you wanted to stick with the horror aspect of this. There's also one from 83 that's just called Devil Fetus, which now I kind of want to dig up.
Can you would almost need this. You could do it as like I'm picturing some kind of an interactive tool where you could have a movie and then click on it, and I'm imagining sort of circling my hand around the name of a movie like Metropolis, and something pops up and says, like this but not German, and then it leads you into a direction, or other German silent films and something,
Right.
and just kind of, how cool would that be to have some kind of just to follow a path of movie recommendations?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Eternal Evil of Asia, where they take a trip to Thailand and accidentally kill a sorcerer's sister, and then carry this curse back with them. That one's the crazy. I don't know. I just love absurdity, and I like just when I'm surprised by a film in a way that's not perhaps malicious.
I'm with you.
And that's the kind of stuff where I really, or are not malicious in a way that, a lot of more torturous things are.
Yeah.
That's a terrible sentence, but I think
I'm with you. I'm with you. Monsieur Drew, what about you? In terms of endorsements, it doesn't have to be a whole genre. Tony led us down a path of, if you like this, there's other things like this. You could do that, or you could do something totally different.
Well, first, tomorrow, if you're listening to this tomorrow, being November 23rd, 2020, or November 23rd, I'm getting way ahead of myself. September 23rd, 2020.
Yeah.
It is the last day you can vote in the Ringo Awards. If you work in the comic book industry or have worked in the comic book industry, you're eligible to vote. Please consider going and voting for me in the best role category. This will be the last time you have to hear me talk about this. Hooray. Secondly, I already kind of touched upon one of these Blu-rays when we did the episode on Sunday about Bride of the Monster, but I will go ahead and go. And today I cracked open the Blu-ray for The Devil Rides Out, and it is also awesome. It has more special features than the Abominable Snowman did. In fact, it's got like a really extensive interview with Kim Newman talking about on The Devil Rides Out. And I haven't actually even been into the movie. I've just been going into the special features.
Really?
So far, but because they're extensive, and there's a lot of documentaries and stuff on there, and I've learned some stuff about that movie that I didn't know. For example, that it was successful in England, but it was not. They were going to do a whole series based off of the Dennis Wheatley Black Magic, but because it wasn't as successful in the States, it didn't happen. And one of the reasons why it wasn't marketed well in the States is, for some reason, the distributor thought, because of the title, that it was a Western.
How awful.
And that's bizarre. I also didn't realize that there was a 2012 re-edit that movie that has modern special effects added in certain places, because I guess some of the special effects were incomplete in the movie because they slashed the special effects budget at the last minute.
I have not heard of that at all. That is completely
I wish that it was the alternate version was on the Blu-ray, because I would if nothing else, I would like the comparison. But that's really my only complaint about the Blu-rays, because so far it's been great. And I can't wait to actually sit down and I feel like I've already rewatched watching the clips from it. But like one of my favorite Christopher Lee roles, which, by the way, we did an episode on right after Christopher Lee died years ago. So you can go back and listen to us talk about The Devil Rides Out. But great movie. And one of the best Hammer movies easily. 2 for 2 on the Shout Factory Hammer DVDs.
Oh, did you see the Vincent Price collection got reissued?
No,
I didn't.
What's in it?
So, Mask of Red Death, Dr. Phibes, Fall the House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum, Conqueror Worm, Witchfinder General, or maybe it's, yeah. So, it just got re-released with also a separate Mask of Red Death. Unfortunately, they note that they don't have the Vincent Price introductions that were on the 2013 release. Curses.
I wonder why.
I'm sure it was a Vincent Price estate thing, more likely. Which is why, I mean, for a long time this has been out of print and people paying a lot of money. So you can get, for $20-something, you can get the Red Death, and for $40-something you can get all these other movies together. which I think I'm going to have to do because Red Death was one of my favorite episodes that we covered. And I love all these movies, and I don't think I have many of them on Blu-ray, maybe DVD, I think.
You want to talk about a movie that has a lot of cruelty in it, though? Conqueror or Witchfinder General.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Whatever you're calling it that day. That is
Right.
that is not a fun Vincent
No, that's
Price.
a dark movie. It is.
No,
Yeah.
I'm with you there. But I mean, sub $50 for Blu-rays of Fibes, Mask of Red Death, and Usher is alone to me a steal.
Well, and I think Witchfinder General is a good film, but like people who were looking for a certain it's an atypical Vincent Price movie.
Right.
Yes.
But also all of these have different, like the Mask of Red Death has 2 cuts, theatrical and extended, as well as, commentaries and all of that. So
And who issued this new collection?
Shout Factory.
Fantastic.
They had the previous one, so think it's time to do this.
Which, by the way, Jason, like going back to the Devil Rides Out for a second, all of our talk about what is and what isn't a Satanic Panic movie, that is talked at length about on a lot of the special features. And while most of the film people they bring in, because they talk about how Devil Rides Out was just a year before Rosemary's Baby, and they talk about how like that's kind of from an older tradition, so it doesn't really belong to the same school as Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist and all the stuff that came after. They did point out that a lot of the stuff does get taken from the Devil's Rides Out anyway, like basically like anytime you have Satanists in robes and the way that all looks like, so it maybe I was wrong saying that it was not part of that, or at least it's a precursor to it. I thought about that when I forget, there's a film critic that points that out, and I wish I could remember his name, but
totally valid. But I'm with you. I don't remember us talking about that movie in the context of the Satanic Panic. I still, by my extremely narrow pedantic rule, I wouldn't count it anyway. But because it seems pretty groovy, But I hear that. I totally hear it. And remember in Cursed Films also, they talked about how everybody's idea of Satanism comes from movies from about this era, with the robes and what exorcisms were like and stuff like that. Most of it from The Exorcist. Fascinating stuff. Cool, man. I did not know at all about the Vincent Price collection. That looking it up now, I see that it came out like this week. So definitely that sounds fabulous. It's like $48 from Shout Factory. So that's a must have. The thing that I am holding in my hands that I always like to crack out about Halloween time that is from Vincent Price is something that I love, and who knows, it might be in that collection. I don't think so, but it's called An Evening with Edgar Allan Poe, where it was like a PBS thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, and it's on the disc I have with Tomb of Ligeia. So it's Tomb of Ligeia and An Evening with Edgar Allan Poe. And basically, it's just Vincent Price on a stage, and he recites a bunch of Edgar Allan Poe. It's great. I mean, you feel like you've bought a ticket and gone to a show where Vincent Price is going to
have a.
Can you imagine?
Price like that's an actor I definitely.
Yeah.
I think just a long dinner, multi-course dinner with Vincent Price would have been pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, he probably would cook you the multi-course dinner because he was
true.
quite the chef.
Yeah.
I speaking of Vincent Price, I've been, even though I don't know what Halloween's going to look like this year, I'm still thinking about costumes. And I'm sporting a beard for the first time in my life, and I'm looking at pictures of him in Witchfinder General, and I'm like, yeah, we got about approximately the same amount of gray. So maybe Witchfinder General for Halloween. No one will know; it's too obscure. But then again, who knows what Halloween's going to be like this year? Anyway,
that's well, I'm liking it. It's going really well, but you're right. Okay, my other endorsement really quickly is I forgot all about this thing that existed. I'd only seen a few scenes before. It's your mileage may vary in a total other direction from the one Tony was going. There's a movie called The Midnight Hour that I have discovered. It's on YouTube. It came out in 1985. All right. It stars Sherry Belafonte, LeVar Burton, Peter DeLuise, and I can't remember who else. But
Have
and
you
it
never,
is
had you never seen that before?
no, I didn't know it existed.
That is such a crazy movie.
Yeah, and it is about it. What's great about it? It also stars the guy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original Kevin.
McCarthy.
Yes, Kevin McCarthy. Okay, so there's your other star. It's about a small town in New England, and some kids, some goofy kids break into the courthouse to the wax exhibit of the witch trials of their era to like steal some costumes as a prank and wear them at the Halloween party that night. And they also steal a scroll that's sealed in wax and they read it at the graveyard because it's goofy and fun. And zombie hilarity ensues. And it has a music break. Like literally Sherry Belafonte stops and does a rock song at one point. And it looks like it was filmed entirely on the Universal backlot because it was, and there's the graveyard looks plastic and it's wonderful. It is everything about a Halloween movie you ever wanted. I love this thing. I mean, I'm going to play it again tomorrow because it is just like a time warp. And the great thing is I didn't know it existed. So it's a time warp it's like I discovered another door. So I'm just super excited about this. Yeah. So that's Midnight Hour.
It's funny. Like we talk about how like your nostalgia barometer is often, what you were exposed to. I don't know why, but I saw that movie a lot when I was a kid.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, it was for some reason always on TV. They reran it on TBS a lot.
How is that even possible? I don't. That's crazy. See, this is that Mandela effect thing. I think your universe had this and mine did not, and that's got to be the case.
Well, I mean, I would also say it was probably aimed more at my relative age group.
Yeah.
During the 80s, because it's definitely I would call it a kids movie. I mean,
it's definitely a family movie, and it came out. So I'm looking. It came out on November 1. God only knows. It must have been a weekend, Friday. So Halloween fell on a Thursday that year. It came out on Halloween Friday, probably when they were doing the trick-or-treating that week, I imagine. November 85. So I would have been 14. Would have been 14 when this came out. And no, did not know it existed. So there we go.
I always hate that when you know about how things are actually released, like when you work in a production or whatever, and then you see like, how could you have missed Halloween? Like, and you know that it's because a bunch of stuff happened.
Yes.
Right? But it feels so this is coming from somebody who's had to release a game because it had to make a certain quarter in January. So by the way, if you're an indie game, I guess it doesn't matter as much now, but at the time, a physical disc, you had to meet certain quotas in quarter, and just don't ever do that. Everybody's spent all of their money from Christmas buying all the other games that are cool, and unless your game is really cool, but even then it's buried. So nobody's spending money. So don't ever do that. But also, having done that or been part of that, release schedule, it pains me to know that it wasn't.
No, I know because
Halloween.
It's not like there weren't. They could have done it the week earlier, and.
But I'm sure there's a reason. That's what I'm saying. Is anytime you see that, people go, I can't believe they missed this. Just the wheels that are turning are usually so far in advance, but it still pains me when I see a Halloween movie that Trick or Treat, the one with the Sam, this is the one time when I say Trick or Treat that it's not or with Sam and Kurt, but it didn't get released for years later.
Yeah.
Because just random studio that they had no confidence. There's all kinds of stuff if you read about it, but I think,
and yet that's become a highly merchandised film.
Right. Yeah, no, it was all crazy because I think we had talked to the director, right, at BNAT, because we got the art book and stuff from it, the making of.
You did that. I did not talk to him. I did talk to the guy who wrote Pitch Black. Remember that?
Right.
But
I sat next to him and I felt sad because I still enjoyed catching up with Ernie at the time, pre multimillionaire Ernie.
Before he was Ernie.
Before he was Ernie Klein writ large. And I still, to this day, feel like we hadn't seen each other in forever. I went and got set with him, and I was sitting next to David Twohy. We were just shooting the bull because I didn't know he was the director of the film until he got up front. And I mean, not that I would have been like starstruck or whatever, but hanging out with a director that cool, because he was just a really cool dude.
Yeah.
I would have talked to him more, but that was the nature. You're like, oh, hey, look, it's friends of ours. Let's go talk to them.
Yeah.
That was the nature of the time. It's just so bizarre. But yeah, that, Trick or Treat didn't come out till way past. It was frustrating that it didn't come out that next
I'm sure it was.
Halloween.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, you and I have been part of a comic that didn't come out for a decade, so yeah, I can feel how it is, but it's frustrating when that kind of stuff happens. But I'm going to have to also watch this movie because in my universe, it didn't come on as often either. So,
well, first of all, as far as the Midnight Hour, I'm looking at it now, and here's the thing: it came out November 1, 1985. I haven't looked at what happened in October of 85, but whatever. So then it may have played a couple of times after that on ABC, but it really got going 5 years later in 1990 on Lifetime. 90 again, and for Halloween, Wednesday, Halloween, 1990.
Right. And I wouldn't have had cable around then anyway. So
right, I was in college, and then Christmas 1990, and then they played it again twice in 92. So there's a good chance, Monsieur Drew, that you were catching it on Lifetime like you do.
I don't think I would have had cable either, but it's possible. The only place we had cable was, man, you know what? I just don't know. It's too long ago for me to fact check that, but I definitely saw it when I was a kid because I saw it again a couple of years ago, and I remembered everything about it. It's kind of weird how I guess you can only have too many plot lines like that, but I watched Hocus Pocus for the first time in years.
I've never seen it. Again, another thing that misses my generation.
It's not really in my nostalgia barometer. I think I was like a few years too old, but I saw it when it first came out, and then I rewatched it last year because I just wanted to watch something seasonal. Mm-hmm. Midnight Hour and Hocus Pocus have a lot of the same plot points, though, and I think a back-to-back viewing yield interesting.
That sounds fun. Yeah, that was co-written by Mick Garris, and it came out in 93 on, I guess it's a Disney movie. So
it is a Disney movie, so it has a lot of Disney stuff in it.
Wow. Well, anyway, so I kind of recommend, if you're working at, and you can, just throw on Midnight Hour in the background and be amazed at how wonderfully 80s it is. I just really, really dug this. Wolfman Jack is in it, and cool stuff.
It's got a really, really awesome soundtrack of old.
Yeah, it's all 60s. It's all 60s rock and roll.
So, Jason, also remind me, I know we're going a little long, but also remind me to post the Celebration of Fantastic Fest link.
Yeah.
Because they're doing Fantastic Fest, but you can watch a lot of the movies on Alamo On Demand if you want to go to a virtual festival. They didn't quite do it like Chattanooga, but there's stuff on Alamo On Demand that you can watch during the fest.
Wow.
So, remind me to post that because I think there'll be stuff for people. They're doing a screening of Daughters of Darkness and Miss Master Pancake of the Bee Women, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly.
But I seeing Daughters of Darkness on the big screen, I think the last time I saw it was probably at the Alamo, in fact, on the big screen. And
but remind me and I'll post. They have the schedule and you can sign up for Alamo On Demand if that's your bag. And
we don't do screens now. I'm sorry, that was stupid of me. How stupid. Well, I just literally forgot for a moment that we're living in quarantine.
Yeah. I mean, they do have a quarantine kind of screening they are doing. I personally can't really justify going to the theater yet, but it is cool. I mean, the fact that we can't have a Fantastic Fest sucks, but the fact that there is a way to watch newer genre film and to support new genre film creator, filmmakers is pretty cool. So yeah. So remind me, and I'll make sure I post that on the Facebook page and such.
That's fabulous. All right. Thank you very much. I really had a good time talking about The Seventh Curse. This was a blast.
I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it.
It really was cool. So I have no idea what we're going to do next. It'll be a couple weeks before we do another hangout. I don't know what it's going to be. We will figure that out. So,
Cool.
but have a fantastic evening, and we will we'll talk soon. Adios. Bye.
Right. Don't catch a blood curse.
No, these things are nasty. All right. Bye.
Later.